Do you believe in alternate universes?
You are listening to Delayed Replay.
The improvised movie review podcast. Wink.
Everything is fine here. We're all fine. Just sit tight and listen to them talk about the movies they definitely saw.
Don't delay. We have to listen right away.
Hello, listeners. This is Steven Schinder, host of Delayed Replay, that podcast that you're listening to right now, either on purpose or by accident. And my guest on this particular episode, he's from the Decorative Vegetable podcast network, which you've heard that Dylan Green is from. This is his co-host on those podcasts. It is Kiyan.
Hello. How are you doing, Steven?
Doing pretty good. Life's been pretty weird. I was trapped in a couple rooms with another friend recently, so getting to talk about a kid's movie after talking so much horror will be kind of refreshing, I think.
For sure. Especially one as, fun and just lighthearted, and easy to dive into as, the second Minions movie.
So yeah, this is Minions: The Rise of Gru. Written and directed by... No, we'll do that here. Well, I guess I'll start with our previous experiences with the movies. So, did you want to go first, or should I go first? Or
I can go. I have not seen the previous Minions movie, but I have seen all three Despicable Me movies. I'll try not to plug, the other podcasts I'm on too much, but I actually covered, the Despicable Me trilogy that's out currently, because the fourth one isn't out, but on, one of the podcasts I do. And yeah, they're just...
Check out the Triple Play, a movie trilogy podcast.
Yeah, so I've seen all of those. They're really weird. They're sort of surreal, but they're cool kids movies. I guess the first one is, at least. I don't want to bash this franchise too much on this podcast, but
I mean, I kind of will. Okay. But yeah, like the episode that you guys did on Triple Play about the Despicable Me trilogy is why I was like, hey, maybe I can get one of them to be on this one. So
yeah, and we were not kind to it. We were not kind to the trilogy.
It's been a little while since I've heard that episode, so I couldn't remember whether you guys said surrealist masterpiece ironically or unironically. So
yes, it was very much in the ironic realm.
Okay. As far as my experiences with these movies, I rented the first one sometime after it came out. Wow, that one came out 10 years ago this year. That's wild.
Yeah. When you say rented, do you mean actual Blockbuster style, you rented the DVD and watched that way?
This was when my family started renting by mail through Netflix.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, man, by mail through Netflix. That's such a remnant of the past.
Yeah, I was going through this phase where... Because, when you rent something from, Blockbuster, you have it for a few days, so you try to watch it as many times as you can within that span. But with Netflix, it was, the opposite. We'd get 2 DVDs at a time, and I'd, watch them and then try to put them back in the mail as soon as I could, so that we'd get, 4 movies per week.
Yeah, gaming the system there a little bit. But
yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah, I thought the first one was funny and enjoyable, and then I watched the second one in the theater with a friend, and I thought that one was really funny. I think I preferred that one slightly over the first one, just because Gru had gone through some changes that I really liked. He wasn't doing his whole villain routine anymore. He was a family man, and I really liked that. And then later on, when I watched the third movie, streamed it on Netflix sometime after it came out, I was not really into how, it felt like a regression for Groot. And, well, did I say Groot? That's Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm Gru. Imagine if all he said was, I'm Gru.
Why would you do this? Because we are Gru. But yeah, like we got introduced to his brother in that movie, and it felt like a step back for his characterization, like kinda going back into the villainy side of things. So I thought that one was pretty meh. As for the first Minions movie, I was trying really hard to remember whether or not I'd actually seen it before. Cause like, do you care if I like spoil how
No,
it
no,
ends?
it's fine.
Okay, so I remember knowing that it ends with the Minions meeting like Kid Groot in like 1968 or whatever it was. But I can't remember if I definitely remember reading that, but I don't remember if I watched it afterward as well, or if like the image in my head was just from like reading it. So like, I don't know if I actually fully watched the actual Minions movie, like I couldn't say.
Well, if you did watch it, it was probably very not memorable then.
Or maybe it had like that memory erasing thing, like at the end of Space Jam 2.
Yeah, the real Space Jam 2 that nobody remembers.
Yeah. It's also like what they did at the end of that Men in Black Jump Street crossover.
Oh my God.
But like I blinked at the right time, so I didn't get my memory of that erased.
Oh man, I gotta check that one out. Gotta, find some way to access it that somebody remembers. Yeah, just as someone who for sure hasn't watched Minions, like the first one, I don't know, I gotta say, despite some of the interesting stuff we're gonna dive into here, like that first Minions movie still does not look good to me.
Yeah, it seems, and again, I don't know if this is my actual memory of it or just my impression of it from what I've like read or like seen in the marketing. It looks very like slapsticky, like I remember in the Despicable Me movies, particularly the second and third one, I dreaded whenever they would focus too much on the
Same
Minions. And it's kind of a weird thing having like those movies and then Minions, although Minions came out between the second and third movie, but like we have Minions and then we get Minions, the Rise of Gru. And to me, it's kind of like if you were to make the original Star Wars trilogy, right? And then you get the Ewoks movie, and it's like a prequel, and like Kid Anakin appears at the very end. And then the next movie is Ewoks, The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh my God.
Wait, that's an actual movie. Ewoks, The Rise of Anakin, or whatever.
Yeah, the events of Revenge of the Sith, like, particle collided with Ewoks, and it's the same, like, weird, like, tonal whiplash style movie.
But Anakin's 12, like, Gru is 12 in this movie.
Yeah, Dylan and I were actually joking about how, like, it seems like they're trying to have the worlds, I know they're not separate worlds, but, like, the worlds of Minions and the world of Despicable Me collide. So, like, Minions will be both Minions 3 and Despicable Me 4, and they'll market it as both to get kids to watch both. It'll be the exact same movie, just with a different, like, title card, and kids will beg their parents to see both. And
so, would it take place between Rise of Gru and Despicable Me 1, or after 3, or would it be like an X-Men Days of Future Past situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really have no idea how they do it. Given the ending of this one, I would not be hesitant to say that it would be a prequel to Despicable Me 1, but yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because when you think about it, the title Despicable Me does not sound very appealing. Whereas with Minions, like, people know what the Minions are and what they're getting, I guess. So, I guess from a marketing standpoint, it looks like a better title, but the characters are really annoying to me.
Yeah, same here. I mean, just kind of going back to what you said before, I also definitely did not like the parts of 2 and 3 that heavily focused on the Minions. I don't know. I find them just, terrible. I know. I mean, I know these movies skew very younger even than Pixar movies, but like, man, the Minions, I just don't like them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an Ice Age fan, but even speaking as a fan, I feel like in the Ice Age sequels, it would get really grating seeing those slapstick sequences with Scrat, the saber-toothed squirrel, and just seeing him fail time and time again. It's the same stuff every time, and it's just filler. So it's kind of similar to my feelings about Minions, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's also potentially why the third one kind of falls flat for a lot of, like, I don't know, anyone like in the double digits or higher of age. Because it's like that one, it skews very young, like 5 and under really is, I feel was their target with that one.
Yeah, I could see that.
This one was a surprise though. I don't know if you felt the same way, but like, I don't know, I kind of liked what they had going on in Rise of Gru.
Yeah, so like I was debating for a while whether or not to watch this movie for the podcast. Like it came out in early July, but I was like really on the fence of whether or not to see it. But then I like watched the trailer and I was like, oh, this actually might be pretty good if they're leaning more on Gru than on the Minions. Plus it's like 1970s and I'm kind of tired of 80s nostalgia, so like 70s is like weirdly refreshing.
Yeah, I agree. I was definitely intrigued. When I first heard of this movie, I was definitely intrigued of like, oh, this is going to be kind of a Despicable Me period piece almost. So that definitely like caught my attention more so than Minions or the Despicable Me sequels.
Yeah, I think this one is like late. Well, it at least begins in like late 1972 because there's that magazine that says something like "Congratulations, Nixon." I think it's like a Mad magazine. But yeah, like there's just been so much 80s stuff like in the past decade or so. I guess this is a good time for me to get into like a little Stranger Things hot take, if that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
So, Stranger Things, I think, is a good show, but each season gets less good compared to the previous one because they focus too much on they shove even more 80s nostalgia and rely on it more, I think, whereas the first one felt like it could have been like a really good standalone, like its own thing, and then I feel like it doesn't live up to its title. Like, sure, it's strange, but it's not strange enough. Like, to me, it feels too streamlined for normies, you know?
I actually have not watched a single second of Stranger Things, so I guess I can't really comment, but I'll definitely keep that in mind, like, if I ever jump into the series.
Yeah, I do think the final scene of the second season is the best scene in the entire show, but the first season is the strongest overall, in my opinion.
That's usually how it is. I find that, I end up thinking that for a lot of franchises, like where one of the worst episodes or one of the worst movies will have the best scene. Maybe the first Minions secretly has like the best Despicable Me scene and I'm just missing out or something.
Maybe it's a scene where they meet Gru. I almost said Groot again. And like the narrator is like, he was, I can't remember all the adjectives, but basically saying that he was perfect for them to follow. And the final adjective the narrator said was like, he was despicable. And it's like such a wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, this movie, it begins with like this little montage kind of filling in the gaps between Minions 1 and this one. Like all of their like failed schemes. Like there was one where they were trying to make chips that would have like mind controlled everyone, but this company was not into the chips, so they ripped off the branding. Like it was called Minions, but they decided to like go with Funyuns. So like similar color and branding, but like they went with the delicious circular chips that we all know and love instead, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, that's definitely like a good one that they threw in there at the beginning. But like, I think it also speaks to how this movie is really cool because it almost does like this historical fiction type thing where it's like you get these origin stories, but like they have to do with the Minions of all things. Like, there's definitely that like space age vibe. You know, it was shortly after the moon landing. You know, thus contextualizing like why Gru is later on so obsessed with the moon in Despicable Me 1. I'm like, oh my god, like this is really it's pretty well thought out. It really touches back.
Yeah, and this really gave a chance to explore his mother more, and she's voiced by Julie Andrews in this, and we get to see like how she's not very impressed with him because like I think she had like a silent role like the character did in like the first movie, but here we actually get to like hear her, and it's like really sad seeing her interactions with Gru.
Yeah, anyone who's watched Despicable Me 1 for sure remembers the like Gru's flashbacks and his kind of origin story where, you know, the reason why he is so self-centered, disconnected from everyone else, and just kind of mad at the world is because his mother never left him. So like, his mother never loved him. Oh my god. And just kind of seeing that play out here was like, you know, it was almost even more devastating than it otherwise would have been because like, you know, the end result of it, you know?
Right. I was also wondering like how much I would enjoy Gru's journey in this because like we know where he ends up, but I feel like overall his like shenanigans in this were fun to watch overall, and it's just, I don't know, it's fun to see what kid Gru was like at this time.
I agree, and I totally think that this was a good direction to go, you know, with Wild Knuckles, you know, almost acting as his sort of father figure, kind of mirroring how he was the father figure to the three girls, and especially in all three of the Despicable Me movies, but especially the first one.
Right. So obviously spoilers for the movie. I feel like the listeners of this podcast know that by now. But yeah, so Wild Knuckles was like the former leader of the Vicious Six. And so they have an opening and Gru like tries to like seek them out, and he plays this record backwards that mentions the Vicious Six. And I don't know if you've ever watched Twin Peaks, but the way that the backwards dialogue sounded reminded me very much of like the Red Room scenes in Twin Peaks.
Yeah, you know, again, Twin Peaks, another show that I haven't seen. I've always wanted to watch it. I just never got around to it. And I've always heard about the Red Room, but I don't even know what it is.
Twin Peaks, definitely better than Stranger Things. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, I've heard Twin Peaks is excellent.
Yeah. So, like, even the elevator has, like, red walls, if I remember correctly. So maybe it's, like, an intentional shout-out, but...
Hey, yeah, maybe. There's a lot...
So, yeah, he meet...
I was just gonna say, there's a lot you can kind of get away with in animation in terms of, like, subtle call-outs, or even, like, quote-unquote casting people into the movie who aren't in the movie, just by kind of almost like in a stylized way, like replicating their likeness. Not that this movie really does that, but like, yeah, possible.
Right. So yeah, he goes down the elevator and tries to like talk to the Vicious Six members. So we have Bell Bottom, who is now the leader of them. Bell Bottom is voiced by Taraji P. Henson. And then you've got, it's really amazing, like, which actors they got for this movie, but we get Jean-Claude Van Damme voicing Jean-Claude, who's got, like, this giant lobster claws. Like, I just appreciate puns like that.
Oh, yeah.
And you got Lucy Lawless as Nunchuck, who was pretty much a nun with nunchucks. Like, that's her deal. Like, that's how she looks and what she uses. Dolph Lundgren as Vengeance, and Danny Trejo as Stronghold. And it's kind of like you get these heavy hitters from these like Rocky movies and Robert Rodriguez movies, and I think that's pretty funny. It's like something for the adults to enjoy, like these little in-jokes for a few of those names.
Yeah, and they even brought some of the actors' own character into the character, like Dolph Lundgren. There's obviously Northern European, like he is. Jean-Claude Van Damme is, obviously worked into Jean-Claude. So I really loved how they did that.
Yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme is known to be a proud lobster in real life, so he's one of the lobsters in the Amanda Show, maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, so Gru is in this sort of interview, and he's a little kid. They're not buying his whole spiel.
Yeah, and this is pretty sad too to watch, because it's kind of like when I watched Monsters University, and it was tragic knowing that Mike Wazowski could never be like a scary monster like he was aspiring to be in that movie. So like that one was pretty tough for me to watch, and like obviously I prefer the like Monsters Inc., the first movie, for partially that reason. So yeah, I kind of got those vibes watching this.
Definitely.
But yeah, Gru is very upset, as you would expect, and he steals some stuff from the Vicious Six as a form of revenge.
Yeah, he steals, what was it called in the movie? He steals their magic stone called, I can't remember.
Oh, I'll remember. I just remember it being called like a stone.
Yeah, it had a name, but whatever. Yeah, he steals their stone thingamabob.
Yeah, and he tells one of the minions to like hide it while he's like on the run, and like just like in the trailer, we get the song Sabotage during this sequence where he's like riding his, was it a bike or a moped? I don't remember what it was, but he's like riding it in the street, and like the song Sabotage always makes you think of like the Star Trek reboot, and because like it was used in the first of those movies as well as in like the third one of those, Star Trek Beyond.
Huh, yeah.
Yeah, once he is in the clear, he reunites with the minion who like had the stone, but it turns out that the minion has like this long-winded explanation about how he traded it for a pet rock, the thing with like the googly eyes.
I love that. It was in the trailer, but I couldn't help but like crack a smile at that.
Yeah, and it was a real surprise when that pet rock cracked a smile, and we heard the voice of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson come out of it. Yeah,
that's anyone who's listened to my other podcast, which is maybe very few listening to this, knows that we sort of have Dylan and I sort of have a running meme about The Rock.
The Rock is such a great actor.
So, Steven, let me ask you at this point, because at this point we're getting the minions' names like rapid fire, and something that it's something that I never was able to, who's Bob, who's Cat, I personally can't differentiate the minions, but they all do have their own distinct names. Well, not all of them, but the main ones do.
Right. I've never been able to tell which is which either. Like, I can barely remember the names. Like, I usually remember that Kevin is one of them, Otto is another, and yeah, I don't know, like I guess they didn't, or maybe this is just me like only watching each of these movies once, but I feel like there's not that great of an effort to differentiate them from each other. I don't know if anyone would disagree, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel the same. It is just kind of like, it's just kind of weird to me watching the credits of all these movies, actually, just seeing their individual names and being like, wait, was I supposed to like know who these, like differentiate the minions, or like, I don't know. Even though I haven't watched Minions 1, like even in this movie, like well, I guess that's not fair to say, because they actually aren't really center stage in this movie, despite the movie being called Minions, and the Minions being like literally some of the most popular animated characters of the decade.
It's like how Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald was not even about the Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, wasn't? I'd only watched the first one of that, and then I refused to watch the second one because the first one was not.
Oh, the second one, I really liked the first one. It had great humor. It's just the second movie was such a mess. Like, lots of decisions that were just plain bad, and a few things that went against the lore, and it feels like there are two film series within this. Like, there's like the Wizarding War that's going on, but there's also like this potential adventure series that they could have done with Newt Scamander, which I think would have been more fun. But they didn't go that direction, which is pretty sad.
Yeah, I would have to agree. You know, not even being the biggest fan of the Harry Potter universe, just kind of hearing you suggest that, like, yeah, wow, that could have been a thing.
Yeah, because like we already got Wizarding War stuff with the Harry Potter movies, and it was done well. And it's like, it should have had like a break from that type of thing.
For sure. And who even knows what's going to happen with Harry Potter at all now that like Rowling Gate has gone down, and like, you know, I don't know. Or Rowling,
yeah,
I don't know how to pronounce her name. J.K. Rowling and Doe, because I wrote one of the most popular kids series of all time. Not I'm speaking in her voice for some reason. She wrote. I wish I wrote one of the most popular kids series of all time.
Murder, she wrote. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, I feel like the minions are pretty interchangeable to me anyway.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is also that kind of this movie, it reminded me in the best ways of Despicable Me 1, where it was mostly focused on Gru and like the interpersonal relationships and like him sort of learning a good lesson rather than just like the minions doing dumb stuff, you know?
Yeah. Going back to like the pet rock, they don't explain why it talks. It just kind of like goes its own way and then is like out of the plot, which is pretty surreal, but also not surprising for this movie.
No, not at all.
But what'd you think of like how they brought Dr. Nefario into this movie?
Yeah, you know, going in, I was like, I knew he was going to be in the movie, and I was like, you know, it's probably just going to be a dumb little cameo. He'll probably just show up like in the background or something. But then I saw that Russell Brand had actually been brought back to voice him, and I was like, okay, this, like, I have to see this, or like, I was really interested in kind of seeing where they went with it, because, you know, for anyone who remembers back to Despicable Me 3, Dr. Nefario was like conspicuously absent from that movie. Because that was like during the time when I think Russell Brand had just like disappeared off the face of the earth. And I don't even know the full story behind that. Like, I remember looking it up back when I was doing research on Despicable Me, but like, didn't Russell Brand just like peace out of Hollywood and just kind of like lay low for years?
I mean, I remember like in the early 2010s, I guess late 2000s, noticing that he's in movies here and there, and then after that, he might have been in other things, but there are things that weren't really on my radar, so I didn't really hear about them. I'm like looking at his filmography right now. It looks like there's 2016, he did a voice role for Trolls, and then there was a gap of a few years.
Yeah, because I seem to remember he, like, decided one day that like Hollywood was a BS industry and he hated being in it, so he just kind of did like, I don't know what he did. He just kind of like noped out of everything for years, and like now he's coming back.
It'd be funny if that's not what happened and this were like an artificial memory implanted in you.
Yeah. There's actually I'll see if I can find it if you want to put it in the show notes, but because I remember reading a pretty in-depth article about some of this. So maybe that's the article, implanting artificial memories in people by just making up a wild accusations about Russell Brand.
Brand new information.
Brand him as a deserter or something. But yes, so in a very roundabout way to answer your question, Stephen, I was like very pleased with what they did with Dr. Nefario in this movie, especially how like this takes place 35 years before Despicable Me 1, and he looks exactly the same. That's just I just love that. Like, how old is this guy anyway?
Yeah, it might be like 35 to 40 years or something. I don't know, like, if there's like a canonical timeline of like the original trilogy or whatever, but yeah, it's like a really long time, and yeah, I just think that's really funny that he looks the same. But real quick, like, going back to like his absence from the third movie, like, wasn't he like frozen in carbonite that whole movie or something? Like, as much of a hard time as I give the third movie, I think that was a genuinely funny way to explain his absence.
Yeah, that's one of those things that the third movie definitely, one of the few things it throws in there for like adults or like, you know, teens who would get it, whereas kids might not.
Right, and I think he had like a background cameo in the first Minions movie. Like, I think there might have been like a picture of him at like a villain convention, or maybe he was at the villain convention. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's got a bigger role in this compared to those last two movies.
Definitely.
It's also pretty surreal when Gru is like he's talking to Dr. Nefario, and then Gru is wondering whether he should be a doctor, and then out of nowhere you get like this Dr. Gru title sequence with like the colors that you see in like 70s Doctor Who intros around him, and it was like so random.
Yeah, another nice little nod there.
Yeah, there's even like a little advertisement for the Three Doctors special in this movie, like in the background.
Oh, really? Yeah, they threw a lot of 70s like miscellanea into the background and such. You know, you see this like 70s toys like the Rock'em Sock'em robots like Gru in Gru's house, and just kind of stuff like that. Neat little things. Yeah,
like there are some like kind of niche things, but there are also some more mainstream things. Like in the soundtrack, they include the hits that you would expect, like Smoke on the Water or Starman. As much as I would prefer like more obscure songs, those aren't bad songs in my opinion.
Yeah, I was, after a disappointing show, I think, from the soundtracks of Despicable Me 2 and 3, I definitely think that the licensed songs that they used in this one were period appropriate and actually fit like the scenes that they were used in. This is where the movie takes sort of an odd turn, perhaps like even you could even say a surreal turn, which is maybe fitting to this series. But like, I don't know, what did you think, Stephen, of the way this goes, where they sort of go on this? I don't know, like both sides sort of go on a quest to actually find the stone. I didn't think that that's where the movie would go, but it did, you know?
Yeah, it's really weird how quickly the stone ends up like in all these different locations around the world. But it makes for like good set pieces. So you see like chases going on like across mountains, and then like across the ocean and like Antarctica and stuff like that. And it's like, dang, how's this kid gonna survive in Antarctica? But since it's like an animated movie, you expect him to.
Yeah, it's always nice, you know, seeing animated characters just chilling with the local wildlife.
Chilling.
Yeah, exactly. With the local wildlife, penguins and seals and such. And I feel that, like, you know, I know we keep going back to, or I know I at least keep taking us back to how much I disliked Despicable Me 2 and 3. But, like, one of my big problems with, especially the third one, was how, just how random the scenes with the Minions were. There were sort of there was like an A plot and a B plot to that movie, and the Minion stuff just grated so much. But, like, here, I feel the almost random nature of these different set pieces and locations actually worked. One, just because of how fun they were, but also because, like, tying it all together with Gru meeting like during this quest, meeting Wild Knuckles, who's trying to keep the Vicious Six from getting the stone because he doesn't want them to, have the amount of power that it affords them, and Gru and him sort of having to team up because of that. As it all tied it together.
Yeah, for sure. Again, this is going back to like the Minions kind of feeling like a diversion in other movies. Like it's kind of like you have like this cooking show, right? And you have the camera focused on like the chef and the food. Like that's the show. Like that's Gru and the main plot. And then whenever it's a Minion scene, it's almost as if like the camera person like goes away from the kitchen and like goes to I don't know, like the
takes a bathroom break or something, and you just get like a first person shot of it, and you're just like, oh man, this is not what I wanted.
I mean, I was gonna say it's like he goes to like the daycare center, which is like not part of the cooking show, but sure, yeah.
It's a less vulgar example.
That is also out of place.
Yeah, you're right. It is as if like it's like, or I mean, it's like just kind of riffing off that. It's like, those Survivor shows where it's like, or like Man vs. Wild, where it's like one guy out in the wilderness and I shouldn't have said Survival, not Survivor, because Survivor's a real show, but like, where it's just one guy out in the wilderness against all odds, but like the camera who is obviously just like eating pizza like behind the camera and stuff and just like hanging out in tents.
Yeah, like pineapple pizza.
Yeah, oh my god. Don't even get me started. But yeah, it's almost as if like the camera kind of pans out and you just see like the camera crew like living it up in their tents and just kind of having all modern amenities, and you're just taken out of that moment. You're taken out of what the show is trying to kind of go for.
They're just giving the viewers what they want.
And what the kids want is more Minions.
Pizza. Oh.
Minion pizza, I don't know. I don't think I would eat a Minion, actually.
That actually was a topic I was going to consider bringing up, and I just wasn't sure if it would come up.
You know me, Steven. I'm a no holds barred when it comes to cooking up delicious cartoon mascots.
Because, I mean, they look like Twinkies with limbs and eyes.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Yeah, wow.
I hope that if there's ever a live-action Minions movie, that they look like those, like, crude, low-budget 80s puppets and something like Mac and Me, and they don't even blink.
What would be the most surreal thing if, like, when, not if, when, because it's only a matter of time, when there's a Despicable Me live action, the Minions should just be, like, actual humans, just, like, with full yellow body paint in overalls.
Just got Steve Carell to shave his head.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I think he could pull it off.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah. His nose is definitely like, it's almost a Gru's, length.
Oh, I don't know about that. But...
Have you seen the length of his nose? It's fairly lengthy. I think it is, at least.
Is this going to be like another time we go on an Office tangent on this show? Because, like, I feel like on this show, it's either an Office tangent or a Space Jam tangent or both, if it's anything.
Hey, neither of those is anything to be ashamed of. If there's any type of tangent that you would want to go down, it would be Space Jam or The Office.
Fair enough.
The American Office, not the British Office.
Oh, right, yeah. I can't get over how, like, self-centered Ricky Gervais's character is. Like, Michael Scott is self-centered as well, but it's not in as annoying of a way as, like, Ricky Gervais's portrayal of David Brent.
I feel like Ricky Gervais, I know we should probably get back to the movie, but, like, I feel like Ricky Gervais is just that kind of actor, though. Like, I don't know. Like,
like, he's just playing himself.
Yeah, he's almost like the British, like, Jim Carrey, where, like, he's playing himself in every movie. He's always not as annoying as Jim Carrey.
Well, I mean, in the Netflix version of The Little Prince, he voiced the most conceited man in the world.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
That was perfect casting.
I almost watched that a bunch of times. Like, I was...
It's a great movie. You should watch it.
Yeah, and I've loved the book ever since I was a kid, so...
But now I'm worried that I've, like, overhyped it for you, so... It sucks.
No.
Go watch it.
Yeah,
Go watch it. It sucks.
Yeah, I've been so close to pressing play on that movie many times, but yeah, I'll have to give it a watch.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to me that I haven't rewatched it since that first time I watched it, even though it's, like, I enjoyed it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of tangents, Gru and Dr. Nefario sign and co-sign this deal to, like, keep each other safe as they go up against the Vicious Six.
Yeah, and I really liked seeing their sort of origin story. Did you like the direction they took Nefario in Despicable Me 2, where he was kind of a traitor figure almost?
I mean, I feel like it was kind of predictable, but I also don't know what else they could have done with him in that movie. So, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. It's kind of like writing him out of the third one the way that they did was kind of justified, since I'm not sure, like, what else they could have done with him, really.
For sure. Yeah, but again, it's kind of one of those things that just makes this movie... this is totally like, you could watch this totally standalone. You don't need to have watched any other movie within the Despicable Me franchise, but, like, it's just one of those kind of nods that kind of makes it hit home a little more, you know? Just kind of knowing what happens with Gru and Nefario later on. And I loved how, like, their team up, so to speak, was like the I don't know what you would call it, the instigation, of the freeze ray, which is such an iconic part of Despicable Me 1. Because, like, if you remember back to those Despicable Me, like, the earliest trailers for Despicable Me 1 were the freeze ray scene. And, like, just seeing Gru, like, while they're in the Antarctic, like, kind of piece it together when he does the finger guns next to the ice, like, it's great.
Yeah, the freeze ray is a staple of the franchise. Much like staples are staples to office spaces. It's all connected.
And they make an appearance in The Office, you know?
Surrounded by Jell-O.
The unsung heroes.
I really hope that someone ate that Jell-O, because it seems like too good to throw out.
Speaking of things people should have eaten, how did you feel about, like, that absolutely disgusting
pineapple pizza?
Why, Steven? Why?
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan of pineapple pizza either. I just think it's funny to bring it up.
No, but I was gonna ask, like, how did you feel about, like, the scene where Nefario and Gru open that fridge because they think the stone is in it for some reason? I don't know. It's just one of those dumb things. And, like,
I mean, it's like one of those things where, like, you can't find your socks, and it's like, oh, maybe it's in the fridge.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. They open the fridge, and it's just, like, the most rancid, like, collection of food, like, ever animated. With worms.
Yeah.
Like, and God, it was gross.
Oh, gosh. That reminded me of, like, you know how Indiana Jones is, like, afraid of snakes, but it's, like, worms, so it's, like, kind of similar. You know, it's all... Like, the way they're animated feels very gross. Like, I feel like in kiddie animation, like, well, I don't want to say kiddie because it's kind of like, it feels like I'm, like, talking down to it, but I guess more softer animation should make you expect it to make worms and whatnot look more tame, but they looked so wriggly and unsettling in this scene. And it's like the worms had no reason to be there. It's just that, like, the fridge had broken, and so there's, like, rotting food, and so, like, why wouldn't there be worms in there? But why hasn't anyone cleaned it?
Yeah, it was definitely not a good moment.
Especially the one that came out of, like, a banana with ketchup on it.
Yeah, not a pretty sight. Not a pretty sight. My hats off to Illumination for pulling it off, but not a pretty sight.
Illumination! Gosh, I'm like so mad that like now Minions are like in every single Illumination logo at the beginning of all their movies.
Yeah, they're the Pixar lamp. I mean, yeah.
But I mean, the lamp is not annoying.
Yeah, and the lamp is like, it's so weird to me thinking how like the Minions are Illumination's lamp because they're the most known characters from them, yet the like Pixar's lamp is like one of the least known, because the lamp just from like this random animation they made in the mid-90s before Toy Story.
Yeah, I think it might have been the 80s, but yeah, I think it was called Luxo Jr.
Yeah, and like people hardly remember that one. But yeah.
Yeah, have you ever seen the video that someone made where it's like from the point of view of the eye in Pixar when it's about to get squashed by the
Oh my gosh, no. I haven't seen.
I'll see if I can find that and link it in the show notes.
Yeah, for all you listeners at home, I do the show notes on all my podcasts, and Steven is like a lot more diligent than I am. I'm so lazy when I do the show notes for the podcast that I'm on.
And Dylan is more Dylan.
Exactly.
With the descriptions. I don't know. There's something weirdly therapeutic about typing the show notes and the timestamps for them. I don't know if you get that same feeling.
I do. Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just like, I don't know, it kind of feels like a scavenger hunt and you feel like you get the exact perfect, like precise time for when like something in the episode happens and you're like, yes, I've documented this for the listeners. It's useful knowledge or whatever.
Yeah, and just cross your fingers and hope like the links last for years.
Oh boy, do I have news to break to you later. Anyway. Yeah, I can't remember how this happens, but like the stone ends up in space, so there's like a space race to get it, which is pretty funny given that we know like Gru's aspirations with like the moon and whatnot.
Yeah, and again, I can't speak highly enough. Like, I love how it came together with, and gosh, I keep forgetting his name. Wild Knuckles, like him kind of encouraging Gru, being like the father figure that he never had. Really, this movie, like, Gru does become a villain, obviously, but like the seeds are planted of what he does in Despicable Me 1 and how he like makes the right choice. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It warmed my heart.
Yeah, because Wild Knuckles talks about like trying to run with a certain crowd, which is the Vicious Six, but then realizing that he needed to find his own family. Like, it seems like he hasn't really found one, but like that knowledge, I think, like probably sticks with Gru up to like Despicable Me 1, so it kind of adds a new layer when you see him like become a family man. Like maybe in the back of his head he's like remembering what Wild Knuckles talked about in this movie. And I think that's like one of the cool things that a good prequel can do,
Yeah, just adding that further contextualization to what happens in the later movies. I totally agree. A lot of people don't like that route because in a lot of people's minds, like, there's this thing of, well, why didn't Gru talk about Wild Knuckles in Despicable Me 1 or something like that? But personally, I've never had that problem,
Yeah, I mean, like, just speaking for myself, if I'm, like, hanging out with people that I know, like, around my age or whatever, I don't, like, talk about the time when, like, I talked with some other friend about that episode of Family Guy where Brian got run over. And we were, like, speculating about whether or not he'd come back. And, like, I was reasoning why it made sense for him out of the whole Griffin family to be killed off. Like you don't tell everyone everything like that happened early in your life, is what I'm getting at, I guess.
Yeah, true enough.
Who was the real Kiyan? long before he started podcasting.
Oh my gosh. Well, funny thing is, Steven, is now you actually have done exactly what you said you weren't going to do, which was bring up the episode of Family Guy where Brian gets run over years later, talking to someone who's roughly your age.
Okay, yeah, I should edit that part out. So, yeah, I'll take note of that. No one will ever know. It'll be like that memory erasing thing at the end of whatever movie it was. Yeah, I don't remember. Forrest Gump 2, probably.
Oh my god.
I think there were like 2 Forrest Gump books.
Oh wow, really?
Like, I think I've heard that the second book, like, he mentions how, like, the movie was different from, like, his actual life.
Wow.
And I think he meets Tom Hanks in that second book.
Oh my gosh. That's great.
At least that's what I've read online. If it's not true, then I guess that's an example of a memory being implanted in me through certain means.
Oh gosh. It's like the Godfather 2, where they just, like, the only, like, actual real interesting parts are the parts from the first book that they took. And the original stuff is not great. I know that's not the most popular opinion, but yeah, I think The Godfather 2 is far inferior to The Godfather 1.
Well, I'll do you one better. I think the Godfather movies are okay. Just okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that, or I'd lean very close to agreeing with it.
There's even like this bit on Family Guy where Peter's like, I did not care for The Godfather. It insists upon itself. And it's like, oh, I kind of see what he means.
Yes.
Just for the record, I don't hold Family Guy in high regard, at least in these last several years. Like, it's definitely gone downhill. It does have moments here and there, but, like, definitely past the golden age of Family Guy, if you can even call it that.
I'm personally okay with the first season before it got canceled and brought back, because the humor isn't just, like, cutaway jokes for 20 minutes and 1 minute of other stuff. It's like an actual sitcom-style show. And then after it got canceled and they brought it back, they introduced sort of the new style that they've become famous for. And weirdly enough, this is a total tangent. We're way down this road, but like...
There's no going back. Go ahead.
The first Fred movie, which I covered on one of my podcasts, had that same style of humor. And like finding out that was written by one of the head writers for Family Guy was like an oh my god moment, because that's just that guy's style of humor. Okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I recall plugging that Fred episode of Triple Play on this podcast like once or twice.
Yeah, I remember I listened to that. I was like, hey.
Unfortunately, we didn't see John Cena in this movie, but it still had some good stuff in it regardless.
No, yeah, especially it would have been great to hear animated John Cena go up against the animated Rock, or animated The Rock. How would you... Oh gosh, whatever.
Yeah, 70s Rock.
Yeah. Kid Rock. Oh my god, Kid Rock is a real thing. Ah!
Oh, we're in too deep, Kiyan. So yeah, Gru tries to subdue the Vicious Six in space by like hatching this plan to like throw pies at them in space, and like the minions help, obviously. And it's just so absurd, but it somehow works, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we brought this up right before we started recording, but pie, like, definitely fits the style of humor that Despicable Me is going for.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it reminds me of, like, the mathematical number pi, and it just reminds me of how, like, in the first movie you had vector, and, like, they mentioned, like, the equation for a vector or whatever.
Yeah, it's true.
And I remember in, like, I think it was 12th grade, I had this physics teacher who would quote Vector's catchphrase, which is like, I am Vector, I am something. What's the mathematical equation? It's like something divided by something or something times something.
Oh, it beats the heck out. I haven't done math in like 4 years.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, if people have seen the movie, they know what I'm talking about. It's been forever since I've seen the first movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, physics.
If only Dylan were here. No.
He was lost in shadow. Now Dylan's probably fine right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the space scene. I like the physical humor that they kind of go for with like people getting sent every which way, not being able to get traction. You know, the classic like doggy paddle / breaststroke like through space, but it doesn't work. Like it's all there.
Yeah, and they even throw this weird pizza. It doesn't have pineapple, but instead of tomato sauce, it has strawberry jam. Like it's a space jam. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional or not, but
Well, it's also
that was pretty weird.
yeah, and it's a pizza pie because you know they're throwing the pies around, and this is like people say pizza pie, but this is like a cross between a pizza and what you traditionally think of as a pie.
Yeah, like this ended up being one of those movies that made me hungry while watching it. You know, kind of like Ratatouille or Chef or Good Burger, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Cloudy with a Chance of
Oh my
Meatballs.
Good Burger, personally, Good Burger is too like, it's too like 90s, like greasy fast food to make me hungry. Unless I'm really hungry, and then like I would kind of want to indulge in that stuff. But like, I don't know, it's just too like 90s like humor with like the food looking really messy and stuff.
I don't know. Personally, Good Burger is my favorite 1997 film.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. Good Burger is honestly one of my favorite movies of all time. Like I'm talking top 10. I wouldn't put The Godfather, any of them, in my top 10, but I would 100% put Good Burger in my top 10.
Yeah, there's a reason it's not called The Good Father.
Because it's not good. No, we cracked the code.
Oh man, we're like throwing hot takes all around and I love it.
Well, hey, just like how they were throwing hot pies all around in space.
Yeah. Also, this is another tangent, but I remember back in high school, I considered writing a fan fiction crossover between like Despicable Me, Megamind, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, The Incredibles, and Monsters vs. Aliens.
So, like, The Incredibles and, like, a bunch of B-tier animated movies.
Yeah, like heroes and whatnot. And, like, I would have done the cringeworthy thing of having Minion from Megamind be like, hey, you're Minions? My name is Minion. And it just would have been bad, probably.
You never know. You could have pulled it off, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
So what did you think of the finale? Because, I don't know, I felt that, like, the movie kind of pulled a fast one on us and all of its viewers. Like, with the big reveal that the stone is actually not, like, even all that powerful.
Right. Like, it was this weird, like, placebo effect thing, right? Where because the stone was so elusive, they thought that it had power, kind of like the ring from Lord of the Rings and how it slips out of people's hands or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But really, maybe people just had, like, greasy, oily hands and should just, like, wipe their hands more. So, I don't know. It was kind of, like, at this point, like, the movie was entertaining enough where, like, the reveal didn't even bother me. But, like, I could see how if this were, like, a more serious movie, it may have bothered me, you know?
Yeah, I didn't think twice about it. I just kind of accepted it and along with it. I liked it. And, I mean, it kind of, I probably shouldn't even, like, really be getting this far into, because it's a kid's movie and stuff, but, like, I felt it was kind of nice that, like, you know, it was really, you know, the power of love or whatever, and you know, family and stuff at the end, and the Fast and the Furious family. But like,
yeah, I was just thinking of that when you said family.
People always like meme that, but it's really only Fast and the Furious. It's only the sixth one that like gets really heavy with the family themes and stuff. I think.
Well, also the ninth
Oh,
one.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've only watched the first 6, and like the first 5 of those.
The
6.
Vicious Six.
Yeah. Yeah, the first 5 Fast and the Furious movies are not really all that family. And I mean, hey, talk about top 10 movies. The Fast and the Furious one is, honest to God, in my top 10. Like, I just really love that movie.
Do you want to just reveal your whole top 10 right now?
I don't know that I have like an actual solidified top 10 in my head. I just know kind of.
Like the more entries in that list that you mentioned, the more like that's gonna get overflowing.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
So like if the Vicious Six were movies, it'd be like, what would the first one be called? Like the something and the Vicious, and then the second one would be called Two Something Two Vicious.
Two Vicious, 2 6? Is that what?
Like Vicious Six would be the 6th one, I think, but yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good question.
So let the fans decide.
I just realized, actually, now looking at the cast list, that the Minions are given first billing, even above Steve Carell as Gru. Like, Pierre Coffin, or Coffin, or however you pronounce his name, is first in the credits. Wow.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
So I guess the Rise of Gru is Steve Carell's attempt to rise at the top of the credits again.
Yeah, and he didn't make it, despite how big of the focus he is in this movie. He didn't make it.
Well, I mean, you know, that's life, man.
Yeah. Kind of almost mirroring, you know, what Wild Knuckles tells Gru at the end, you know. I don't know, the whole like stone not being very powerful at all, and the whole like almost, not really, but the almost like the last life, man, like message at the end kind of reminded me of those like knockoff DreamWorks and Pixar movies, like the little panda fighter. Like, I don't know if you, or like what was it? The Transmorphers.
So like stuff from the asylum.
Yeah, exactly. Which like just Little Panda Fighter I've actually seen in full, and like the message at the, like, it seems like it's going for a good message, like kids movies usually do, but at the end, like the message is just that like money can buy you power, and you need to well, which is I mean, it's actually true to life, you know, like it maybe that's a better message than like the heartfelt stuff that kids movies usually give you, but like at the end of the day, that's how that movie ends, and it's just so weird.
I'm like looking at this movie right now to see how
it looks not great.
Oh gosh, it looks like food fight animation. Have you ever seen Food Fight?
I have not.
They both have fight in the title. Wow, did I just like discover something?
An ancient conspiracy.
Yeah. Wow, pretty soon, like, some agency is gonna, like, break down my door and try to silence me.
FBI, open up!
Yeah. Asylum, open up. Nobody should know of our connection to Food Fight, or that this is a Kung Fu Panda ripoff.
Yeah, the Asylum has their own private military.
Yeah.
That's why their movie...
And they take all their prisoners to an asylum to silence them, so they don't spread the truth.
It's why their movies are so low budget, because they spend all their money arming their armed forces.
What if it's the same asylum from Good Burger that they send Dexter and Ed to?
I gotta say, that entire sequence of Good Burger has not, like, aged well.
It has not. It really hasn't. But I mean, what are we gonna do? Time travel?
Yeah, I mean, seriously? As if that's possible, right? Sweating profusely.
Wink.
I mean, all in all, though, I feel this is probably the second best Despicable Me movie to date.
The ending was very satisfying, I think. Like, you know, the Vicious Six get thrown into jail or whatever, and then Gru feels really good about himself having accomplished something, even if it wasn't exactly what he set out to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets to like 1973 when like Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon comes out, and he like listens to that record and is just looking up at the constellations, and it's just a nice bit of foreshadowing.
Definitely. It was a satisfying ending, all said and done, all things considered. I wanted to ask you, so I remembered from back when I was kind of researching Despicable Me, the trilogy for the podcast, that I co-host Triple Play. There was this quote from Chris Meledandri, who was, I forget, he was either the founder of Illumination or was very heavily involved. He said, "We embrace the subversive." That was his quote about what like Illumination's mission statement almost. How much would you say that this movie falls in line with that?
It's kind of weird because I feel like subversion can be good, but it can also be bad depending on the execution.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, I think Illumination also put out The Secret Life of Pets.
Yes.
That was pretty much just Toy Story and I guess kind of like Bolt, which was also like kind of a ripoff of Toy Story, but like it was pretty straightforward. It was what you expected, so it was kind of disappointing that it was very copy and paste. And then you get like the second Secret Life of Pets movie, and the beginning I actually thought showed promise. Like I wanted it to be about the dog, like the relationship with the kid and like protecting like the child or baby or whatever it was. But then it took a sharp turn and became like a totally different film that was like not that. And so that was really disappointing. It's like when the camera shifts from the main plot to the minions, basically. Mm-hmm. But like the whole movie. But with Rise of Gru, well, yeah, it was subversive with like the stone and whatnot. And I think it worked given the context of the movie. And it actually like subverted my expectations. Like I was kind of expecting a Minions movie like this to be worse than it actually was, but then I ended up getting more enjoyment than I expected.
Definitely.
I know that's like a roundabout answer, and I'm not sure if I like completely answered it.
No,
but yeah,
I think that totally makes sense. Because I think this movie actually did a good job of taking a long, hard look at what was good about Despicable Me, and perhaps, again, I haven't watched Minions 1, but perhaps what worked in Minions 1, and really, really trying, if always succeeding, but at least trying to kind of marry those two together.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of feels like it's trying to meet halfway between the two different brands. Well, not Russell brands, but like the Minions and Despicable Me brands, and like in a way that kind of works.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
All right, so like, how would you rank the movies, and what are your final thoughts and score out of 10?
Oh gosh,
I know you like hate ranking things, but like,
yeah, I definitely put Despicable Me 1 as number 1. I should have started with my lowest, but oh well, too late. And I definitely put this at number 2. Yeah, those two are definitely the strongest, I think. Again, I haven't watched Minions, so I'm not going to put that one on the list, but then probably I'd say Despicable Me 2, and then 3, I think, is my least favorite. Just Balthazar Brat, not a great villain. Again, like you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, way too heavy on the 80s nostalgia type stuff. Kind of regresses Gru's character in like a really weird way. And yeah, just not my favorite. And the Minions were damn annoying in that one.
Yeah. I really hope that there are like no kids listening to this who just really love the Minions no matter what.
So my score out of 10, I really, when I do give things a score out of 10, I don't go with like the whole 7 is average type thing. I usually go with, straight down the middle. 5 is an average movie. And I think given my expectations, I'd put this at a 6. It was above average. I enjoyed it. It wasn't out of this world, and it wasn't stellar. Even despite the ending sequence in space, it just wasn't.
Yeah.
But that said, I liked it, and I do think it was above average or above my expectations.
Yeah, I mean, we should all aspire to be above average, you know?
Mm-hmm. Was that a pun?
It's just like, you know, like usually people say you should aspire to be the best, but I'm just saying above average.
Sure. Yeah.
I've probably talked about this before, but like in England, 70% or higher is an A, and like 60s is a B, and like 50s is a C, I think, and it's weird.
Yeah, that is really odd.
But yeah, as for me, I think, like again, I went in with low expectations, and then I ended up enjoying this more than I thought I would. And yeah, like this was a fun ride. There were some moments that made me laugh to the point where I probably annoyed the person sitting next to me who shushed me at one point. So I felt like kind of bad. But yeah, this had some great moments, and I think, well, I'll do my score first and then my rankings. I think I'll give this one a 7.75 out of 10. I enjoyed it a bit more than SpongeBob Sponge on the Run as far as like animated movies I've reviewed on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't as fun as Scoob, which I've probably mentioned at some point during this podcast. Like, even if it wasn't a full comprehensive review. Yeah, also SpongeBob is like another like popular yellow animated character. I wonder if there's a conspiracy there.
Huh. Yeah. Wow. And I mean, hey, The Simpsons.
Oh, true. You know, I have a friend who used to think like that, like, I guess as a kid, she thought that The Simpsons were French fry people because they were yellow.
I can kind of see that. You know, Bart and Marge are definitely very long.
Yeah, Bart's haircut, like, he kind of looks like it could be like those zigzag looking French fries at the top.
Yeah.
Somehow. So yeah, I guess my rankings of the movies would be like Despicable Me 2 and then 1. Like, if I watched them again, they might switch places, but I think those are like around 8 out of 10 for me. And then this one, and then Despicable Me 3, which is probably like 6.5 for me, and then Minions is a 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that was quite a ride. Like, I'm really proud of some of the tangents we went on in this episode, weirdly enough. It was very illuminating.
Oh my gosh, wow. Come to think of it, though, we didn't actually even really touch on the budget nature of Illumination movies and how that factored into this movie. Anyone who's, like, even if you haven't looked it up, like, if you've watched an Illumination movie, like anyone out there, then you know that they're kind of a budget studio. That's kind of their business model is, you know, not skimp, but like they're definitely not as big budget as like a DreamWorks or a Pixar movie.
Sure.
But their movies still look great, I think, whether that's just their aesthetic, just their art, like their art design. I think their movies look great all around. I think this one was no exception to that.
Yeah, I mean, even the ones where the story falls short still look decently animated, I'd say.
I remember even a little anecdote from Despicable Me 2 where I don't think this is true. I think it's actually probably just an exaggeration, but Steve Carell was like, yeah, the 3D modelers crashed the computers they were working on because their models were so, I don't know, detailed. I don't necessarily believe that.
Oh,
though,
wow.
But, yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie grew on me.
Oh my gosh. You've been waiting for the entire time to say that, haven't you?
I almost forgot to say it. I was going to say it during my final thoughts on the movie, and I was like, oh shoot, I forgot to say that.
I do think that the Despicable Me franchise has been, at least in my mind, a little bit reinvigorated by this movie.
Yeah, ironically, it's not despicable. It's actually good.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for being on this episode, Kiyan. Where can people find wherever you're located on the internet?
Yeah, so I co-host 3 different ongoing podcasts and one that's done. I guess I'll just plug all of them. But we're
do it.
Yeah. So I'm part of the Decorative Vegetable network of podcasts, which, if you've listened to previous episodes of Delayed Replay, Dylan is, my co-host on those podcasts. So we do Trust Your Doctor, a weekly Doctor Who podcast. We do Inevitable, which is a weekly classic sci-fi podcast. We're currently watching through the 1967 Prisoner series, which has been fun. I do Triple Play, which is currently on hiatus, but that's a movie trilogy podcast, released seasonally, irregularly, but we try and do it as much as we possibly can, on and off with Inevitable, our sci-fi one. And then I'm on Zenith, a Blake 7 podcast, which, we covered the entirety of Blake 7. And that's our completed podcast. So we're on Facebook at Trust Your Doctor, and we're on Twitter at TYD Podcast if you want to check us out there, or at decorativevegetable.com. You can find all our podcasts there as well. And yeah, in response to the first part of that little statement, Stephen, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been such a fun time.
Yeah, I keep forgetting to mention that Dylan was on the Jungle Cruise episode. That's specifically where he was on. But yeah, it was great having you on one of these too. So as for, yeah, that sounded really awkward the way I did it. But yeah, it's too late. So as for my plugs, you can find my fantasy horror comedy novel that I always talk about, Lemons Look Like Rain. It's on Amazon, and you can find more info on that at stevenschinder.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at Steven Schinder, and on Facebook at Steven Schinder Storytelling. And I'm also writing and editing some articles for Culture Slate, an entertainment news site, and they're at Culture Slate pretty much everywhere. So yeah, I'll put links to my plugs and Kiyan's plugs in the show notes, of course. And yeah, just click on everything that you see in the show notes, I guess. Cause why not? It's a lot of work. The copying and pasting isn't a lot of work, but just adding new things is kind of work too.
Yeah, and those clicks are free. Literally just takes seconds of your time and $0. So
yeah, I just do this for fun. Just click, please. Well, I guess I would get money if they ended up buying my book, but anyway.
True.
So yeah, and if you have any thoughts on this movie or anything else that's been covered on the podcast, you can email delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com, and we may read your thoughts on the show. Now just real quick, let me check the emails. There are none. Oh well.
Oh.
I honestly don't know why I include that segment, but
Just in case.
Imagine the one time I forget to mention emails, someone actually sends it an email.
Yeah. I might surprise you one of these days. Shoot an email into your inbox there. The problem is you cover so many movies that I haven't seen, so.
Well, you could comment on some of the tangents me and the other guests have gone on. You could be like, oh, I disagree with that hot take or whatever.
True enough.
What's great about your hot takes on the podcast you're on is that even when I disagree with them, the way you bring them up just sounds so funny that I just it's just gratifying hearing them. I'm pretty sure garbage entered my vocabulary when it comes to film analysis because I've heard it so much on those podcasts.
Oh my god. I don't know if I should be happy about that, but I guess I will be. And hey, Garbage is an okay band. I was going to say they're great, but they're actually not. They're just okay. They have like...
Do they even know they were a band?
Yeah.
Are they a garage band, which is garbage without the B?
Oh my gosh. Their second album is pretty good if you want to give it a listen. The rest of their discography is not great.
Alright, yeah. I might listen to that and then include a comment about it in the show notes if I listen before putting this up. But anyway, I guess with that, the show is over, and hopefully we'll get like the inevitable like Minions / Despicable Me time travel synergy story someday. We'll see.
My finger crossed.
Yeah. Alright, without further delay, have a good day.
We are Ru and Host.